In this episode of the Orange Nerd Show, we are talking about Mickey Mouse, or more specifically, Steamboat Willie. Copyright ran out. Does that mean it's a total free-for-all? You can use this character whenever you want? Not so much. We're going to break that down up next on the Orange Nerd Show. Let's go. Welcome aboard, nerds, to another episode of the Orange Nerd Show. I got the one, the only, the Italiano. We're fresh off of that amazing New Year's Eve live stream last night. That was fun, George.
4.5 hours, man. I think that was our longest live yet.
Dude, it was long, but we had a blast with everybody.
It was great.
Everyone in the chat. Yeah, it was really, really cool. Had a great time. We had a Disney drinking game at the beginning. A lot of fun. But the Italiano, I'm kind of missing your chest hair, man, from last night.
I know. It's like after you get used to it, it's like then when it's covered up, it's like, dang, like I miss it.
Yeah, exactly. But if you could let everybody at home know where they can find you on social media, sir.
Absolutely. You could find me and my chest hair on X, formerly known as Twitter. You could also find me on Instagram under the Disney Italiano. And of course, you'll find me here on my home base at Orange Grove 55 with Citrus Corner with all that sweet, juicy, but sometimes sticky Disney news and info.
There we go. Let's rock and roll. Okay, so Steamboat Willie officially entered the public domain. Okay, so what does that mean exactly? Well, what this means is that you have a little more freedom to use this character. Now, this means only this character. So not the modern versions of Mickey Mouse. Like you can't use the Fantasia Mickey or the new Mickey from the Paul Rudd shorts. It's just this particular Mickey. Now, this was an article posted by Deadline today, this morning, actually. It's stated here, Mickey Mouse hits the public domain, but don't expect to get a free ride on Steamboat Willie. Now, I've been saying this for a while, George. I see a lot of people on Twitter and stuff like that kind of talking about how, oh, well, we can just use Steamboat Willie now, right? It's public domain. That's not how it really works. And I'm going to kind of break some of this article down a little bit, but those copyrights which do expire, which we see here, but trademarks never expire, right? And Disney has been pretty smart in dealing with this in terms of kind of turning this character, this version of the character, into a trademark in 2007 when they made it the logo for Walt Disney Animation Studios. So let me go ahead and read you this. I want to kind of talk about this. I really want to get your opinion on this, brother, because I think this is absolutely fascinating. It says here, go ahead and highlight it so everyone can see it. In 2007, Disney revamped the Disney Animation Studios logo to include a snippet of Steamboat Willie's Mickey. The Mouse House, being what it is, and rightfully so, trademarked that logo. Now remember, trademarks do not expire. That trademark was updated in early 2022 with the description reading, quote, "The mark consists of a motion mark of an animator's drawings visually flipping one after another and transitioning into an animated clip of a mouse character tapping his foot and whistling while holding a ship's wheel, followed by the appearance of the wording Walt Disney Animation Studios underneath the animated mouse character." Now, this puts a huge monkey wrench into anyone's plan to just utilize this character and the likeness any which way they want. What are your thoughts on this, George? Early thoughts.
Well, definitely, I have to say that was smart on Disney's behalf. So that way, that version of Mickey Mouse doesn't get spun around to where any entity or any company or any individual can just kind of utilize him and make it to where it could be inappropriate or what have you. However, it also depicts that they cannot utilize him in the sense where it would showcase that it was coming from the Walt Disney Company.
Right.
For which anything that would showcase that particular style of Mickey Mouse, they cannot utilize the same sense of motion. They cannot use the same kind of backdrop, the same positioning, because essentially that trademark ends up saving Disney's behind for them to do so. Um, so yeah, so when people then say, "Oh, he's in public domain," it's, Mickey is going to be turned into something that he shouldn't be, yada yada yada. There's a lot more yellow and red tape to that than
Right.
meets the eye, and if anyone crosses those lines, Disney would then have the right to to sue, because it's to the notion of what that trademark is. And as you said, trademarks never expire.
Yeah, well, and you're right about perception, right? So if a studio releases a Steamboat Willie or Steamboat Willie looking animated movie, and there's any perception that that film might be from Disney, Disney can step in and get that removed.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so but see that's the thing. It's a very you're very limited in what you can do here. Now, for example, there was a recent movie called Pooh, Blood and Honey.
Correct.
So Disney owns the character of Pooh, but I mean, well, they don't own the character, but that copyright, I believe, also expired, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they still utilize the character in Disney parks and films and what have you. Now that particular case, the Pooh, Blood and Honey, they get away with using Pooh because I guess no reasonable person would assume that a horror movie based on Pooh would come from the Walt Disney Company. Right.
Correctly. And for the killer side of Pooh, if he was to have a line of saying, which of course a serial killer type of bear, if he was to say, "I have a rumbly in my tumbly," then that is taking the perception of taking something from the Disney side of Winnie the Pooh.
Right.
And then Disney can step in. So they're using the title of Winnie the Pooh, but it's their own rendition of the character.
Right, exactly. And here's the thing too that a lot of people don't really understand or don't really recognize. Disney's library of characters is full of characters in the public domain.
Exactly.
Every single fairy tale they've done. I mean, pretty much.
Yeah. And that's what I brought up on the live yesterday for New Year's. Well, I should say today.
Yeah, exactly.
Because the Walt Disney Company was essentially, Walt Disney Animation Films started with Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. If you look at all of those fairy tales, none of those are original pieces from Walt Disney himself. He got them from books, from other versions of silent films, the Grimm's brothers. There's all of that construed down to because those characters, those stories, they were in the public domain for him to be able to acquire the rights to them. So if we were to say that this shouldn't happen, then the Walt Disney Company wouldn't be where it's at from that, or it may not even exist at all.
Right, 100%. I want to also bring this up because I think this is actually very important. Here is a still shot from the new Paul Rudish Mickey Mouse shorts, right? Now, this version of Steamboat Willie, it's not exactly the same likeness as the one you see in the original 1928 Steamboat Willie, right, but it's very close. But this version, from what I understand of this character, because it's a new cartoon, this would be protected under copyright, right? It's not look at his hands and everything. They're different than what you see in the. Mm-hmm. It's a slightly different rendition of this character. So this is where I'm kind of getting at, in that there is a lot of legal it's like a legal minefield when it comes to utilizing this character, because you veer too far into this version of it, and it's probably you're not going to have that same public domain protection, right? On top of that, like we talked about earlier, you know, if it's anything that gives the appearance or the perception that it's coming from the Walt Disney Company, that's also an issue for people. So I think that what's going to happen here, George, is I think a lot of content creators or a lot of, you know, folks that are greatly misunderstanding what this means, I think they're going to flood the market early on initially with a lot of Steamboat Willie-esque kind of stuff, and they're going to learn real fast that it's not a free for all. It's not the free for all as Deadline was saying that you might think it is. You know,
and it just doesn't start and stop with Mickey Mouse. You know, in the next year, to several years, there's going to be a lot more other characters that are going to be released into the public domain. Donald Duck is going to be released, I believe, either next year or in 2 years. Superman is going to be released into the public domain. So it's not just based off of Mickey Mouse. You know, there's other characters from either other companies, but I'm for sure, you know, there's also going to be a catch-22 to those as well. And Disney is very protective of their characters, of their stories, of their movies, of their music, of their rights. Hell, even when we would do videos on YouTube, you know, if we play anything that showcases anything of Disney, you know, the video can get dinged where you know, it has a copyright infringement. So Disney is very very good at protecting that stuff. I feel because Walt wanted to have it that way all the way going back to how he lost the rights to Oswald right underneath his nose because of just certain wording in the contract. For which they did get Oswald back, which I'm so happy they did 90 years later. But
yeah, well, a couple things about, well, I'll start with Oswald. That's interesting. No one mentions Oswald, and Oswald's older than Mickey. So is Oswald already public domain, or because it switched hands from Universal to Disney back in, I think, 2006 or 7?
Is it a reset?
Right. I'm not sure about that because no one discusses Oswald, and he's technically older than Mickey. So I would assume he's public domain unless that transition from Universal to Disney changed, like you said, it reset the clock. I'm not really sure about that. If anyone at home knows, any lawyers or, you know, copyright attorneys, whatever, if you know that answer, I'm very curious about that. Another thing that I'm wondering about, which I didn't know until you just mentioned, George, but Superman is coming up, right? So here's the thing with Superman. James Gunn recently said that the DC logo for the films is going to change. You know, the graphic in the beginning.
The graphic of how it looks, yeah.
I wonder, because if they see Superman, which is DC's Mickey Mouse essentially, right? I wonder if they're going to incorporate that old version of Superman that's running out, that copyright, where the copyright's expiring. If they're going to utilize that version of Superman in their new DC logo to do what Disney did with Walt Disney Animation Studios and trademarking it and what have you. I'm very curious.
That would be interesting. Yeah, that'd be smart of them to do so.
Very smart, very, very smart. And DC is kind of lucky too, because the logo for Superman on his chest is easily trademarked. I mean, logos, I have my logo is trademarked, you know what I'm saying? But logos are very easily trademarked. That's what a trademark is essentially. Like logos, monikers, things like that. So they could trademark, if they haven't already, the Superman logo. And then what are you going to do if you can't use the S on the chest? What are you going to do with Superman? It's not Superman at that point.
It's not Superman. Yeah, exactly.
You know, so there's
it's just a guy in blue tights with outside red underwear on, you know.
Yeah.
It's just...
I mean, you know, can a guy just wear some blue tights and some blue tighty whities, bro? Like, you know, come on, man. You don't got to be Superman, you know. You know. But it's very interesting, and we also have to remember, like you said, George, a lot of these studios are all hitting 100 years old. Like Warner Brothers hit 100, I think, this year. Disney hit 100. I think Paramount has already hit 100. Like, so a lot of these legacy characters from all these studios, you're right, they're coming up for this public domain, and it's fascinating. Now, I still don't. What are your thoughts on this, George? Why does this stuff expire? If Disney is still around, which it obviously is, they still utilize Steamboat Willie. I go to the parks and I see Steamboat Willie merch and everything. It's still being utilized. We even saw it being utilized in some of the animation, the recent animation. If it's still active,
right? What is the point? Like, why? I never understood that either. Like, I don't know what the logistics behind it is of like why it. Yeah, as you said, if it's active, if these companies are Iran, which they've been Iran, and they're going to continue to be Iran, then it's just.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's the fairy tale stuff. I get it, right? Because a lot of these authors, like with the Grimm's brothers and things like that, they wrote these stories and they pass away, right? And then, so who does it go to then, right? I guess the family, but right. I mean, you know, but after a while, it's like, you know, it's so far.
But like original content that's actually coming out of these studios.
Right. Exactly. And like I said, like with Grimm's brothers, they passed away, and it's like, if no one is going to continue on with that, like in the family or the estate or whatever, then it makes sense for it to fall into the public domain. But when you have a company like Disney, it's still alive and well. I mean, it's still arguably the biggest studio in Hollywood right now, despite its issues at the moment. And it utilizes that character all the time. Like, well, why would it fall off? Like, as long as I think there should be, in terms of copyright, as long as it's actively being used by the copyright owner, I think it's fair game forever. I mean, that's just me, in my opinion, but that's how I would set it up, you know?
Yeah, me too. It's almost like, yeah, if you're not utilizing something and it's just kind of sitting collecting dust, then they can say, you know what, you have so much time to maybe utilize this content or this character or this, whatever. By this date, here's your deadline. If it doesn't, it goes into public domain. Which, if they still have it trademarked, they still have the right to utilize it the way they prefer.
Right.
But as far as just going into public domain, yeah, if it's being currently active by the company who designed it that way, it's like, yeah, what does it matter? And after I mentioned Donald Duck and Superman, I knew there was another one that I couldn't remember, but now I actually do. It's I believe in the next couple years is actually The Wizard of Oz is going to go into public domain.
That's interesting. Okay. So yeah, there's a lot of these coming up. So it's not just going to impact Disney. Now this is a big one for Disney because it's Mickey Mouse, But I would imagine Bugs Bunny probably soon too, because that's an older character.
Yeah, I would think probably in the next couple years or so, because they said there's a slew full of well-known characters and movies that within the next decade they're falling into public domain, and I'm for sure Bugs Bunny would be one of them, because I remember watching a documentary that a lot of the original animators that started at the Disney Brothers Studios before it became the Walt Disney Studios, when they left Walt, they abandoned him, so to speak, because they really didn't believe in. They went over and they were some of the animators for the Looney Tunes. So if Mickey Mouse was already created prior to Bugs Bunny, and this is the start of him in being the public domain, I would say in the next couple years, Bugs Bunny would be the start of it too.
And we got Disney's version of Snow White coming up, I would assume in like 1937, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it'd be, I think it's 100 years, isn't it?
I believe so, yeah.
So Snow White's kind of coming up. Well, kind of. I mean, still got a while for that. But I mean, this stuff, it's going to keep coming. The hits are going to keep coming, And these studios, I think, are going to find creative ways around it. Okay, and one more thing before we go, George. I want to ask you, brother. It's in regards to the fandom, right? I see a lot of people on like social media, like X and what have you, people that are maybe disgruntled right now with the Walt Disney Company, like the current state of the company. And I understand that. I get that. There's a lot of anger out there for this company right now. People don't like Bob Iger and the whole woke thing and the whole thing, right? But I see a lot of people out there sort of cheering on this perceived, and I'm saying perceived, free-for-all for Steamboat Willie, right? Kind of going in there and saying, hey, you know what? This is hilarious. Look what the Walt Disney Company has to deal with. Now anyone can come in there and sort of trash this character and make a mockery of it. Ha ha ha, right? Mm-hmm. And it's like I'm thinking to myself, like, are you like, you're not owning, like, you're not like, it's not a jab at current Disney. Steamboat Willie has nothing to do with current Disney. This is Walt Disney's creation. This is the birth of one of the greatest characters of all time. It's and you're gonna sit there and you're gonna essentially,
it's really a slap in the face to Walt.
Well, it is more than it is to Bob Iger, right? I mean, this is Walt, baby. This is Walt's creation, and I don't know. As a Disney fan, I'm sorry, maybe I'm just being a little sensitive. I don't know. That bothers me. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I think if you dislike current Disney, 100% fine. You're entitled to that viewpoint. But why are we punishing? Why would you gleefully cheer on the trashing of a character that has nothing to do with current Disney? Now, I hear all the time that people that are really, really hard on the Mouse House and everything are like the biggest fans usually of the company. It's like, yeah, but then I see stuff like that and go, well, are you really though? Because it's like, if you really were a huge fan of Disney and just didn't like current Disney, you should be there cheering on the protection of Steamboat Willie.
It's really a hypocritical contradiction. It really is, because when you use that kind of mindset to say, yeah, oh, I'm so happy, that Disney has to go through this, and they're losing this beloved character in this way, and it's going to be a mocker. Well, first off, let me just go and say this: if Disney is so in high-end protection of any of their characters, of any of their movies, music, what have you, where a YouTube video can be ended up a copyright infringement, that we can't use nothing of Disney in that sense on here for our own personal well-being. If you utilize anything of Disney, you can't even make anything to, even if you wanted to try to sell something as original, if it has anything to do with Disney, you'll get your butt kicked.
Right.
So why would Disney do that and then leave go their main signature character? So automatically in the mindset you have to think, okay, Disney has other ways around this so they don't lose this character. So that's the
Right.
first thing. To your question, yeah, so if you were to go back and look at this character and you say, well, the company should be the way it was back in Walt's day. Walt had it perfect. Walt did it right. But then, yeah, you're going to trash the same form that Walt created, and even I'd even say Ub Iwerks, because Ub actually helped him with the design of Mickey Mouse as well. Great documentary, by the way, The Hand Behind Mickey Mouse. Very good documentary. If anyone can find it, it's a really good watch. Um, that it's a slap in the face to Walt. It's a slap in the face to Ub. And how can you truly call yourself a dedicated Disney fan when you're saying you're Team Walt, but yet you're gonna criticize the notion of saying, well, good for Disney. Good. I'm glad this is happening to them. Now they have another hurdle to go through. Just because you don't like Bob Iger, or you don't like Bob Chapek, or you don't like even to us, we give Josh D'Amaro shit all the time,
Right.
but we have to look at it that those are individuals that are part of this company. It is not the heart and soul of the Walt Disney Company is within the company itself, not who is running it. It's the rich history that is behind it. It is these characters, it is these stories, it is this music. And to to kind of degrade actually yourself by saying a statement like that is very shallow. And
Yeah.
I'm sorry, you call yourself a Disney fan? Not in my eyes.
No, if you're rooting for like for this character to be you know utilized in really gross ways, it's like okay, so yeah, take that, Bob Iger. It's not even Bob Iger's character; it's Walt's character. So what are you talking about? You know what I'm saying? It's like this is like you said, George. It's a slap in the face to Walt in his creation. And Mickey Mouse, and this is not look. Mickey Mouse is one of humanity's great achievements, in my opinion. I know people are gonna think I'm crazy to say that, but I do. I think it's one of the, it's a positive, optimistic symbol to the world. And the creation of Mickey Mouse was a massive part of modern culture. It has been, and to sit there and like root for that to be desecrated and dragged through the mud now because you're mad at Bob Iger is I don't know. For me, it rubs me the wrong way, dude, in a lot of
Yeah.
ways.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's disgusting, really. It makes you just kind of go, ugh,
Yeah,
but even to yeah, Mickey is such a well-known, beloved character throughout the world. You can actually see a cutout silhouette of Mickey, or you can see just the head and the ears, and you can identify to say, I know what that stands for. I know what
right.
that's all about. Now, is the shape of Mickey's head in public domain in that sense, or is that
No, I believe that would fall under like a trademark because that could technically be a logo. So the three black circles, I think that has protection forever because they can trademark that.
okay?
They can trademark that like I trademark my OG55
Right.
logo. So
Okay.
yeah, I think that's protected absolutely, and I don't think that'll ever go away. So yeah, there's a lot of like if you're a content creator and you think you're just gonna willy nilly, no pun intended, willy nilly. If you're just gonna willy nilly use Steamboat Willie, just be careful because it's not 100%. It's not like just that free for all that people on X and social media are proclaiming. Like there's a lot of nuance
Yeah.
here and stuff, and
Definitely do your homework and research, because if you end up doing something that you really shouldn't be doing and you think that you're doing right, and Disney then dings you or come after you and they want you
right.
to remove it, or you get a copyright infringement or what have you, don't don't get angry at Disney because you're the one that hasn't read the fine print.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, a Disney lawsuit, you know, could get expensive, right?
I got my mind on my money and my money on my mind. Yo, it ain't really work if you're proud.
Yeah, I'm glad we got the new money drop. I have a lot of Lisa drops, but my bias, Jenny, I don't have any. Yeah, I don't have any Jenny drops. I'm like, what's going on here? So I'm glad the Queen has made her world premiere here on OG55. You know what I'm saying? It's good to
Absolutely.
see. But George, I want to thank you, brother, for coming on this episode of the Orange Nerd Show. But before we close it out, I do want to say a few words, and I think you do too, about what happened last night in Japan.
Absolutely.
You know, they had a massive. Last time I checked, I think that they had it was pegged as a 7.8 earthquake in Japan, and the videos coming out of Japan are absolutely heartbreaking and crazy shaking. I mean, the intensity that you're seeing, it's absolutely insane. You know, like subway cars like teetering off their tracks and stuff. The shaking is so bad. There's a ton of damage. I'm sure, hopefully not, but probably a loss of life. It's just heartbreaking, you know, and I've said it many times here on the channel. I absolutely have a soft spot. There's a place in my heart for Japanese culture and pop culture. I love the Japanese people and what they bring to this world. And they do amazing things, and it really does break my heart to see them going through this on New Year's of all times. Starting off 2024 like that is just so crummy, and it's just so. I just want to say here at OG55, we are thinking and praying for everybody in Japan with this earthquake. Here, I'm in California, you know, so I'm no stranger to earthquakes. Back in 1994. We had a massive earthquake out here in Southern California. It was a 6.9. So it wasn't even as big as this one in Japan. And the 6.9, I couldn't even stand up. It was so strong. Like, it was literally, I couldn't get up and walk out of my room. It kept knocking me down. So I couldn't even imagine, because this thing is like multiple times bigger than a 6.9. I couldn't even imagine what they went through with this, you know, and it's heartbreaking to watch. But George, any thoughts on what's going on in Japan right now?
Yeah. So when I heard the news of like this freak occurrence, I don't know if there were any updates, but the last that I saw, it was a 7.5 earthquake. Um, 6 people had lost their lives. As of right now, they counted 6. The earthquake caused major destruction. As you mentioned, the subway, office buildings, monuments. It created a tsunami, fires, and what have you. And what a lot of people really have to understand is us. We have that mentality of saying, "Oh well, I'm glad I'm not over there. You know, I'm glad I'm over here. You know, I'm glad I'm not in their shoes." But we have to have a little bit of empathy and sympathy for this notion, because people over there are just as much of a human being as we are.
Of course.
That they're somebody's mother, they're somebody's father, they're somebody's son, they're somebody's daughter. We're all connected in some shape and form. That there could be people that are over here in the United States that could have family and loved ones over there. So we just have to have a mindset to be just a little bit of a sensitive awareness to just hurry up and say, you know, well, I'm glad that I mean, we definitely have to count our blessings, but just show a little act of kindness and respect.
Right. Sympathy.
Yes, absolutely. And as you had mentioned, OG, thoughts and prayers go out to those people that are affected. I hope everyone continues to stay safe. For the families of the lost ones, you know, deepest thoughts and sympathy go out to you. But yeah, it's crazy that when I saw, like, there was someone reporting in an office and you could still see the shaking around them. Like, I don't know if it was still part of the earthquake, if it was the aftershock or what have you, but hopefully, but I will say, if there is any culture that can get through this, it's the Japanese culture. They are one hell of a strong country.
Yeah.
They can run circles around us. They can run circles around anybody, and they are very strong and well powered. So
Yeah.
it's crappy that they have to go through this, especially in the beginning of a new year. But I will say that as crappy as it is right now, they will stand up again and triumph through this.
Oh, they'll get through it. Absolutely. The Japanese, I agree with you wholeheartedly. They will absolutely get through this. It's just, it's heartbreaking. So yeah, George and I and everybody here at the OT55 family sends our hearts and prayers and positive energy to the country of Japan right now and everything they're going through. It's terrible to watch. And like I said, as someone who's a Californian, I just completely sympathize with this, because these quakes, I'm telling you, if you're not from California or not from Japan or you're not from a place that has these earthquakes, the videos are intense, right? But I'm telling you, when you're experiencing these things in person, because it's like, it's surreal, you know? And the thing is that like with like a hurricane or a tornado or, as bad as those are, and they're very bad, but these are things that they monitor for days and days before it hits you. So you have this preparation. You board your windows. You get in your basement. You do this stuff. An earthquake, literally, you're just sitting there, and all of a sudden it starts, and you don't know how long it's going to last. You don't know how big it's going to get. It's terrifying. You can be in your car. You can be on the freeway. You can be sleeping. It's a surreal event when it happens. When we had that big quake in '94, it was like 4:30 in the morning, and it was a holiday weekend. I think it was like Martin Luther King Jr. weekend. So I had a buddy over that day, and we were playing video games when it happened. But it knocked us out off the chair. My buddy actually got hurt. Like my bookshelf fell down, and it like slit his arm and stuff. And we were on the floor. We couldn't get up. It was so strong. So these things are seriously, when you're in one, I'm telling you, it's indescribable. It's indescribable.
And was there an earthquake this morning in California?
Yeah. There was.
So I'm assuming, was that like a connection from Japan, or was that just a coincidence?
Well, it's like the Ring of Fire, if you guys have heard of the Ring of Fire. I mean, it's possible, it's like my mom actually had a great analogy, right? Like if you have an egg and you crack this side of the egg, there might be some cracks that form from the crack on this side. You might get a crack on the other side of the egg from the pressure on this side. So it's kind of the same thing with these plates and everything. It's like when Japan had their quake, it adjusts everything. And it's possible that and it, not for sure, we don't know, but it's possible that the shaking over there and how intense it was adjusted some things over here. Because I was actually laying in bed and actually reading about the Japanese earthquake while we had a 4.1 earthquake hit us. I was like, is my mind playing tricks on me? This is so weird. But crazy. The 4.1 is nothing compared to what they had, obviously. We had a quick little boom like that, and it was over, But we did have one. We actually had one on the show. Well, it was a pre-show, remember?
Mm-hmm. I remember I saw your shelves kind of shaking, and some of your items were like shifting, and you just stopped dead, and you're like, I think we're having a quake. And you're like, yep, we're having a quake.
Yeah, and that's the scary part, because it can start kind of mild, and then it can get really rowdy, and you're like, before you know, it's huge. Or, it just kind of evens out or whatever. You just don't know. It can last 10 seconds. It can last 20 seconds. It can last a minute. You just don't know. And it's a freaky, freaky experience. And it's one of the worst things I love living in California. I really do. I think we have the best weather. We got everything you need out here. We got Disneyland, all the theme parks. We got the mountains. We got the desert, the beaches. We got it all. But the earthquakes, hey, is one of the problems that we have to deal with out here. Now, thankfully, we don't deal with it as often as, like, say, the Japanese do. It's farther and fewer between with the big earthquakes. But it's still there. Even the little ones freak you out because you just don't know. So, but again, our hearts go out to everyone in Japan. We love you, and you, like George was saying, you guys will come out strong. Absolutely. So, stay strong, and our hearts and prayers go out to everybody over there. But George, the Italiano, I want to thank you, brother, for coming on Orange Nerd, talking Mickey Mouse, copyright, trademarks, Superman, all that good stuff. If you could let everybody at home know where they can find you on social media, sir.
Absolutely. You could find me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Disney George. You could also find me on Instagram under the Disney Italiano. And of course, you'll find me here on my home base at Orange Grove 55 with Citrus Corner, with all that sweet, juicy, but sometimes sticky Disney news and info. And as I said before on our New Year's live show, folks, definitely hold the fort down. We are definitely going to be producing more Citrus Corner videos. It's just right now, there's just nothing coming out right now. So when it does, we'll be definitely producing that content for you. So definitely stick around for it.
Yeah, exactly. We have a motto or kind of a mission statement here at OG55. Like, we only create content if we have something to say, right? So if Disney World, there's nothing going on over there, we're not just gonna make a video just to make a video, you know? So we haven't done a Citrus Corner in a couple of weeks because there hasn't really been any Disney World news in a couple of weeks. But I have a feeling this is going to change now that the New Year's here, the holidays are behind us, things are going to start cooking. Chef Boy OG, here we go.
Watch now, because we said that tomorrow we'll wake up to 10 different pieces of news on Walt Disney World.
Oh, I hope so. We'll get a stacked show, you know, it'd be great. Yeah. But everybody, thank you so much for watching the Orange Nerd Show here on OG55. And as always, have a wonderful, wonderful day.
Like iced tea, I'm OG. Like iced tea, I'm OG. Iced tea, I'm OG. I'm demon like IT. Got more juice than Hicey.